Iran has launched one of the most dramatic and dangerous strikes of the ongoing war, targeting areas around Israel's most sensitive nuclear zone in the southern desert. And what happened in those critical minutes has shaken military analysts, global leaders, and civilians alike. So before we go deeper into how this strike unfolded, which missiles were used, and what it means for the future of the region, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because we bring you the most accurate and fastest updates on global conflicts. And now let's break down the full story behind this high-risk escalation. In the early hours of the 22nd of March, 2026, sirens suddenly pierced the silence across southern Israel, especially in the desert region surrounding Dimona, a location known worldwide for housing Israel's most secretive nuclear research facility. And within moments, radar systems detected multiple incoming ballistic missiles launched from Iran, marking one of the closest direct threats ever recorded near this highly sensitive nuclear zone. And according to confirmed reports, several missiles entered Israeli airspace at high speed, overwhelming defenses and striking near the cities of Dimona and Arad, turning residential neighborhoods into zones of fire and destruction. This strike was not random. It was a calculated response in a rapidly escalating conflict. Just hours before the attack, Iran's own nuclear infrastructure, particularly the Natanz facility, had reportedly been hit in strikes blamed on the United States and Israel, and Tehran had already warned that any attack on its nuclear assets would trigger retaliation against equally sensitive targets. And this is exactly what unfolded: a direct escalation that brought nuclear-linked sites into the battlefield itself. As the missiles approached Israeli territory, air defense systems, including Iron Dome and other advanced layers, attempted interception. But in a significant and alarming development, at least 2 missiles were not intercepted and struck their targets, raising serious concerns about gaps in Israel's multi-layered defense network, something that had rarely been seen at this scale during previous conflicts. The impact of the missiles was immediate and devastating. In the city of Arad, 1 missile hit a residential zone, causing major structural damage to buildings, igniting fires, and trapping civilians under rubble. While in Dimona, another strike occurred dangerously close to Israel's nuclear research facility, creating shockwaves across the region and triggering fears of a potential nuclear-related disaster, even though initial reports confirmed no direct hit on the facility itself. Emergency response teams rushed into action, pulling injured civilians from debris, treating the wounded, and evacuating residents as smoke and flames spread across impacted areas. And according to multiple reports, nearly 100 people were injured, including children, with some in critical condition, while hospitals declared mass casualty emergencies as the scale of the attack became clear. Now, the critical question is how Iran carried out this strike with such effectiveness. Military analysts believe that Iran used medium to long-range ballistic missiles, possibly from systems like the Khorramshahr class, which are capable of traveling between 1,000 and 2,000 kilometers while carrying extremely heavy warheads of up to 1,800 kilograms. And these missiles can reach speeds as high as Mach 16, making interception extremely difficult even for advanced missile defense systems. These missiles are typically launched from mobile platforms, allowing Iran to quickly reposition and avoid counterstrikes. And in a coordinated attack, multiple missiles can be fired in rapid succession, overwhelming radar tracking systems and increasing the chances of at least some projectiles reaching their targets. And this appears to be exactly what happened in this case, where defense systems were saturated by simultaneous threats. Another possibility being discussed by defense experts is the use of decoy techniques, where additional objects or modified warheads are used to confuse radar systems, forcing defense systems to divide their attention and increasing the likelihood of penetration. And while official confirmation is still pending, the success of the strike suggests that advanced tactics were indeed used. The type of warheads used in this attack is also a major focus of analysis. Current information indicates that the missiles carried conventional high explosive warheads, which are capable of causing significant blast damage and structural destruction. But the same missile systems are capable of carrying far more dangerous payloads, And this raises serious concerns about future escalation scenarios. The proximity of the strike to the nuclear facility is what makes this event particularly alarming. Because even without a direct hit, a missile explosion near such a site carries the risk of secondary damage, potential contamination, and psychological panic. And international nuclear monitoring agencies later confirmed that there was no abnormal radiation and no direct damage to the facility, but they also issued warnings about the dangers of continued military activity near nuclear sites. This strike also sends a powerful strategic message. Iran has demonstrated that it can reach and threaten highly sensitive locations inside Israel, including areas associated with its nuclear capabilities. And this changes the perception of vulnerability in the region, as even heavily protected zones are no longer considered completely safe. At the same time, Israel has made it clear that such attacks will not go unanswered, with leadership vowing strong retaliation and continued military operations. And this sets the stage for further escalation as both sides continue to target increasingly sensitive infrastructure. The broader context of this strike is equally important. The conflict has now entered its fourth week, with fighting spreading across multiple fronts, including Lebanon, the Gulf region, and even international waters. And attacks have not been limited to military targets, but have increasingly affected energy infrastructure and civilian areas, raising global concerns about a wider regional war. Another critical development is the reported use of long-range missiles by Iran, with some capable of reaching distances up to 4,000 kilometers, potentially extending the threat beyond the Middle East and into parts of Europe, highlighting the growing scale and seriousness of the conflict. The economic impact is also being felt worldwide, with disruptions in oil supply routes, such as the Strait of Hormuz, causing fluctuations in global energy markets, and rising fuel prices, adding pressure to economies already dealing with uncertainty, while political tensions continue to escalate among major global powers. Inside Israel, daily life in affected regions has been severely disrupted. Schools have been closed. Residents have been instructed to remain in shelters, and emergency services remain on high alert, preparing for the possibility of further attacks. While in Iran, officials have framed the strike as a successful demonstration of military capability and deterrence. The psychological impact of the strike cannot be ignored. Targeting an area near a nuclear facility creates fear not just of immediate destruction, but of long-term consequences, including environmental damage and potential radiation risks. And this adds a new dimension to the conflict, where the stakes are no longer limited to conventional warfare. As military analysts continue to assess the situation, one of the key concerns is the increasing normalization of targeting strategic infrastructure, including nuclear-related sites, which significantly raises the risk of accidental or intentional escalation into a much larger and more dangerous conflict. There is also growing concern about the involvement of additional actors, including regional allies and proxy groups, which could further expand the scope of the conflict and make it more difficult to contain, as seen in simultaneous attacks and threats across different parts of the region. The international community has responded with calls for restraint, urging both sides to avoid further escalation, especially around sensitive sites like nuclear facilities. But so far, these calls have had limited impact on the ground reality, where military operations continue at a rapid pace. Looking ahead, the situation remains highly uncertain, with both Iran and Israel showing no signs of backing down, and each new strike increasing the risk of a larger confrontation, potentially involving more countries and more advanced weapons. What makes this moment particularly critical is how close the strike came to a nuclear-related disaster. Even though no direct damage was reported, the margin for error is extremely small, and a future strike that hits closer or carries a different type of payload could have consequences far beyond the immediate conflict zone. This event may also reshape military strategies in the region as countries reassess their defense systems and prepare for new types of threats, including high-speed ballistic missiles and coordinated multi-directional attacks. At the same time, intelligence agencies are working to understand the full extent of Iran's missile capabilities, including range, accuracy, and payload options. While Israel is likely reviewing its defense systems to identify and address any weaknesses exposed during this attack, the role of technology in this conflict is also becoming increasingly important. From missile guidance systems to interception technologies, and the balance between offense and defense continues to evolve as both sides adapt to new challenges. As the world watches closely, one thing is becoming clear. This strike near Israel's nuclear site marks a turning point in the conflict. It shows that both sides are willing to escalate to levels that were previously considered too dangerous, and with each passing day, the risk of a broader and more destructive war continues to grow. And now the biggest question remains: what happens next? Will this remain a controlled exchange of strikes, or are we witnessing the early stages of a much larger conflict that could reshape the entire region? Because if attacks continue to move closer to nuclear facilities, the consequences could be catastrophic and irreversible. For now, the region remains on edge, with military forces on high alert, civilians living under constant threat, and global leaders watching closely as one of the most dangerous confrontations in recent history continues to unfold in real time, with no clear end in sight and the possibility of further escalation looming over every new development.